Today, we're talking about something most people never think about: what you actually agree to online. Because when a company says, "We've updated our terms," it can sound harmless. But sometimes that tiny message changes the rules of the deal. So let's look at how companies can make it feel like you agreed to something, even when you barely knew it changed. Let's get into it. You know that boring email you get that says, "We've updated our terms"? Most people delete it. Some people don't even open it. And honestly, why would they? It looks like nothing. It feels like legal spam. It sounds like the kind of message written by a robot for another robot. But sometimes buried inside that boring update, the deal quietly changes. The price might change. The cancellation rules might change. The way your data is used might change. The company's responsibility might change. Even your ability to complain, refund, dispute, or leave might change. And the strange part is this: the company can often say, "We told you," but did they really tell you? Or did they just technically notify you in a way they knew almost nobody would understand? That is the weird gap between real agreement and technical agreement. Because when you first sign up to something, you think you are agreeing to one deal. You download the app, you create the account, you click accept, you start using the service. In your mind, the deal is simple. I pay this much, you give me this product. These are the rules. But companies do not always treat that first agreement like a finished deal. They treat it more like a living document. Something they can update, something they can rewrite, something they can quietly adjust over time. And because almost everything now is digital, the agreement is not really a handshake anymore. It is a giant wall of text that almost no normal person reads. Then, months later, you get the famous message, "We've updated our terms." That sentence sounds harmless. Sounds like a boring maintenance notice. Like they changed a few words, fixed a typo, or added some legal housekeeping. But sometimes that update is doing something much bigger. It can change what the company is allowed to do. It can change what you are allowed to do. And it can change what happens if there is a problem. The trick is that the update does not need to feel dramatic. It does not need to say, "Warning, the deal has changed." It usually sounds calm, professional, and forgettable. That is what makes it work. Because the system does not rely on you understanding the change. It relies on the fact that the change was disclosed somewhere. And that is where things get uncomfortable, because in real life, agreement means understanding. If someone says, "Do you agree to this?" you expect to know what this is. But online, agreement often means something much weaker. It can mean you clicked a button. It can mean you kept using the service. It can mean you did not opt out. It can mean you received an email and ignored it. So the company gets to say, "You agreed." But from your side, it does not feel like agreement. It feels like the rules changed while you were not looking. And this is not just about one company or one app. This is part of the way the modern internet works. Companies want flexibility. They want to update products, change pricing, collect different data, adjust features, limit responsibility, and protect themselves legally. From their perspective, policy updates are useful. They allow the business to keep moving without asking every single user to renegotiate from scratch. But from the user's perspective, it creates a strange problem. You can be inside a system where the rules are constantly changing, but your understanding of the deal stays frozen in the past. You still think you are using the product you signed up for, but the company may now be operating under a newer version of the rules. And the more services we use, the worse this gets. Think about how many accounts you have: streaming apps, shopping apps, banks, games, social media, food delivery, cloud storage, software subscriptions, email, phone plans, insurance, travel apps. Every single one of them can send policy updates, and almost nobody has the time, energy, or legal knowledge to read all of them properly. So, what happens? People stop treating policy updates as meaningful information. They become background noise. And companies know that. That does not always mean they are doing something evil, but it does mean the system benefits from your exhaustion, because the average person is not going to stop their day, open a legal document, compare it to the previous version, understand the difference, and decide whether to leave the service. That is not realistic. So the company gets the benefit of informed consent without the user you actually feeling informed. And that is the real issue. Not that every policy update is bad, not that every company is hiding something, but that the system is built in a way where companies can communicate important changes in a format people are trained to ignore. The message looks boring. The language is complicated. The consequences are unclear, and the easiest option is to do nothing. But doing nothing can still count as acceptance. That is the part most people do not think about. Silence can become agreement. Continued use can become agreement. Not canceling can become agreement. And suddenly the company can say, "You had a choice." But did you? Technically, maybe. Practically, not really. Because a choice hidden inside a wall of legal text is not the same as a choice a normal person actually understands. And this is why those boring emails matter more than they seem. They are not just updates. They are part of a system where the rules can move after you have already joined. You agreed to version 1, then version 2 arrives, then version 3, then version 4. And most people never notice the difference until something goes wrong. Maybe a refund is denied. Maybe canceling is harder than expected. Maybe a feature disappears. Maybe the price changes. Maybe your data is used in a way you did not expect. And when you ask, how can they do that? The answer is often, it was in the updated terms. That is the uncomfortable truth. Modern companies do not always need you to meaningfully understand the deal. They just need the system to record that you were given the chance, and that is a very different thing. So the next time you see we've updated our terms, it might still be boring. It might still be full of legal language, and you still might not read every word. But it is worth remembering what that sentence can really mean. It can mean the rules changed, the deal moved. And whether you noticed or not, the company may now say you agreed.